But what I've seen over these months is that every time they make progress and they move closer and closer to that hope for peace, the warmongers in the deep state step up and try to do everything they can to stop them. Predictably, they use the same old tactics that they've always used. The deep state within the intelligence community weaponizes intelligence to try to undermine progress. They leak it to their friends in the mainstream propaganda media to try to spread this and push a false narrative. They foment fear and hysteria as a way to justify the continuing of the war and their efforts to undermine President Trump's efforts towards peace. And do so specifically in this case in order to try to pull the U.S. military into a direct conflict with Russia, which is ultimately what the EU and NATO want. We cannot allow this to happen. We have to see clearly what's happening before our very eyes and stand united in this cause of peace.
This is my video update on this Sunday afternoon, December the 21st, coming to you from Athens, Greece. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with a report from NBC News, which claims that Netanyahu is going to meet with Trump in the next month or so, and he plans to brief Trump on a possible new Iran strike. According to Israeli officials, Iran is expanding its ballistic missile program. They are preparing to make the case during an upcoming meeting with Trump that it poses a new threat. So we're going to have a new year, a new Iran threat, a new U.S. strike. Round 2 of the Iran-U.S.-Israel conflict. This is according to NBC News. And from Iran, we go to Venezuela, where a tanker was seized yesterday. I'm not exactly sure of the location of the tanker, but according to Christoforou, the tanker was at one point in time docked in Venezuela, and it has now been seized by the U.S. Coast Guard along with assistance of the Department of War. And according to a post by Christoforou on X, the United States will continue to pursue the illicit movement of sanctioned oil that is used to fund narco-terrorism in the region. We will find you and we will stop you. So they seized the oil tanker, which is a Chinese-owned oil tanker with a Panamanian flag. And my understanding is that this oil tanker was not a sanctioned oil tanker, and Trump's sea blockade of Venezuela said that it was a blockade on sanctioned oil tankers. But according to Christoforou, the United States, they seized sanctioned oil, the illicit movement of sanctioned oil. Actually, she doesn't even say that the United States seized sanctioned oil, but they are going to continue to pursue the illicit movement of sanctioned oil. The illicit oil that funds narco-terrorism, according to her post. So in my video update yesterday, I talked about Venezuela a bit, and I was wondering what is going on with Trump's sea blockade, and it looks like we have our answer. It's chaos. It's chaos because this oil tanker, the last I read about this oil tanker, it was not sanctioned. And you get the sense from Christoforou's post on X that the oil tanker was not sanctioned, but she throws in there that the United States will stop the movement of sanctioned oil, not specifically saying that this tanker was carrying sanctioned oil. But it looks like Trump had to do something, I guess, huh? He announced the sea blockade, and he had to take some sort of action, and that is what what he did, seizing this oil tanker. I wonder what the Chinese are going to do. Pirate Trump. That is what Venezuela is saying. In their statement, they said this is an act of piracy, and this is all about regime change in Venezuela. Yes, yes, and yes. Piracy, yes. All about regime change in Venezuela, yes. And Pirate Trump, aye, matey, I like it a lot. Aye, matey, I like it. So if you like this video, hit that like button. And like a pirate, say, aye, matey, I like it a lot. Also share this video and subscribe to this channel as well. And that is Venezuela. So we have Iran. That's the peace president's conflict number one, heading into 2026. Conflict number one, Iran. Conflict number two, heading into 2026 is Venezuela. And conflict number three, the trifecta, the treble. Conflict number three for the peace president is Ukraine. And we have Russia's envoy, Dmitriev, in Miami. He held a meeting with Kushner and Witkoff yesterday. And according to Dmitriev, it was a very constructive meeting. Constructive talks took place between Kushner and Witkoff, and they are going to meet today as well. And there were reports from West media, Collective West mainstream media, which said that Trump was trying to put together Ukraine, Russia, U.S. Trilateral talk in Miami. Dmitriev, Witkoff, Kushner, and Umerov, who is hanging out in Miami for some reason. Umerov, who is implicated in the energy scandal. Interesting that no one talks about the Nabu Ukraine energy scandal anymore, but what happened to Yermak? What happened to Andrei Yermak? What's going on with Mindich? What's going on with the energy scandal? And Umerov was implicated in the energy scandal, and he's hanging out in Miami. And there was talk that Trump was trying to put together some sort of a trilateral meeting between the U.S., Ukraine, and Russia. The Kremlin came out with a statement, and they said that they have not heard anything about a trilateral meeting, and it's not on the agenda for Russia, Ukraine, and the U.S. to meet in Miami. Dmitriev, he's not part of the Russian Foreign Ministry. He's Putin's advisor, envoy. So I don't even know if that would even be a constructive meeting to have, to be quite honest. It sounds like this would be something, if you were going to have a trilateral meeting, which of course we're in no position to have that happen. But if it was to take place, one would have to imagine that it would be the foreign ministries of all the countries that would be participating in some sort of a trilateral meeting. So it does look like that Dmitriev is in Miami to be briefed, updated on what was discussed by Kushner, Witkoff in Berlin with the Europeans and Ukraine. Even though we pretty much know what they discussed, we have the contours of the framework of the plans that they agreed on: security guarantees, unconditional ceasefire, and all of that stuff, which Russia will flat out reject because we're moving further and further away from June 2024 root causes. Dmitriev is most likely in Miami so that he could get officially briefed on what they agreed on with the Europeans and Ukraine in Berlin, and so that Dmitriev could pretty much tell them none of this is going to fly. So there's no reason to take another trip to Moscow, Steve Witkoff, because you're moving further and further away from what was agreed on in Alaska. And I imagine that Dmitriev is probably telling them we need to get back on track with what was agreed on in Alaska by U.S. President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. So we'll figure out what's going on in Miami, most likely later today or tomorrow. And we are getting reports from German media and from UK media that it is time for Ukraine to agree to some sort of a deal. German media WELT is running an article with the title, translated into English, Painful Truths, with a very sad-looking Zelensky, Ukraine will lose the war against Russia. Europeans must admit this, even if it hurts. The only remaining goal is to prevent the worst. Owen Matthews of The Telegraph, who is a fanboy of Zelensky, or he was. He was a fan of Zelensky. It seems like he's turned on Zelensky over the past couple of months, but he is super pro-Ukraine, as is The Telegraph, super pro-Ukraine, as is German media WELT, super pro-Ukraine. But the Telegraph is running an article with the title, Europe has just failed Ukraine again, in reference to the Russian frozen assets, not being able to steal the Russian frozen assets. It would be better to negotiate peace than find ways to fund a war that Kiev is slowly losing. Now, Kiev is quickly losing the conflict. And an admission that there is no money for the conflict. Even the 90 billion loan that, if you even want to call it a loan, that was agreed on in Brussels, really doesn't have much. There's not much details behind this loan that was agreed on, this 90 billion. So we really don't even know what this loan is about, how long this loan will last. Does it include the 40 billion loan from the G7? 24 countries said they're going to participate in this loan, but are they really going to participate in this loan? And what crazy investor would actually agree to take part in a loan, knowing that there's no time limit to when they're going to get their money back. There's no period of time knowing when they're going to get their principal back. We've got 3 billion in interest, according to Politico, that EU taxpayers are going to have to pony up. Ukraine is not going to pay the interest of this 90 billion loan. It's going to be EU taxpayers that are going to pay the interest of this 90 billion loan. So zero interest loan to Ukraine. The only way that Ukraine's going to be able to pay it back, according to Ursula, is if Russia pays reparations. Everyone knows that's not going to happen because the winning side does not pay reparations. So name me an investor that is going to say, hey, this looks like a really good loan. let me take part in this issuance, in this bond issuance, or whatever it's going to be from the European Union. Sure, get me in on this action. I don't know when I'm going to get my principal back, but hey, probably never going to get my principal back, but hey, take my money. Anyway, yeah, there's no money for Ukraine. So basically the Telegraph is saying it's time to come to a deal. Reuters is trying to keep the conflict going, and Reuters is UK owned. Reuters is a UK owned media outlet. And they're trying to sabotage the talks between the United States and Russia. So as Dmitriev is in Miami meeting with Witkoff and Kushner, Reuters decided to drop an article with the title, U.S. intelligence indicates Putin's war aims in Ukraine are unchanged. And in this article from Reuters, they are citing people familiar with this matter. You know, the people familiar with this matter, because people familiar with this matter, they know what's going on because they're familiar with the matter. So they're citing, they're people familiar with the matter, that Putin may be saying publicly that he would like a diplomatic solution, but his goals remain the capture of all of Ukraine and even the invasion and capture of Europe, so that he can recreate the Soviet Empire. The Soviet Empire, which was in a Cold War with the U.S. Empire. That is Putin's goal, to recreate the Soviet Empire. And so Reuters is making the argument in this article that the United States needs to continue to escalate, not to negotiate, escalate with Russia and prevent Putin from taking all of Ukraine and prevent Putin from taking parts of Europe, because it depends on how collective West media or how collective West leaders feel during a certain time period as to what narrative about Russia they're going to push out. Some days they wake up in the morning and they decide Russia is weak and they were unable to capture Kiev in 4 days. So give us money, give us weapons. Or they come out with the argument saying that Russia is going to invade all of Europe. Russia is strong and they're going to invade all of Europe and take over Europe. So give us money and give us weapons. It depends on the scenario. It depends on the situation. It depends how they feel when they wake up in the morning. It's either the Russia is weak and Kiev 4 days or Ukraine in 4 days, Mark Milley's propaganda narrative that they continue to cling on to, or it's Putin is super duper uber strong, Russia is super duper uber strong, and they're going to march all the way to London. But the ask remains the same: more money, more weapons, more funding of the MIC. So that doesn't change. That does not change. So anyway, Tulsi Gabbard, she took issue with this post from Reuters, and she said it's propaganda, it's a bluff, it's a lie. She actually said it's a lie in her response to Reuters. She said, no, this is a lie, and propaganda at Reuters is willingly pushing on behalf of warmongers who want to undermine President Trump's tireless efforts to end this bloody war that has resulted in more than 1 million casualties on both sides. Dangerously, you are promoting this false narrative to block President Trump's peace effort and fomenting hysteria and fear among the people to get them to support the escalation of war, which is what NATO and the EU really want in order to put the United States military directly into war with Russia. And Gabbard talks about how it is her assessment at DNI, along with her team, her officials, their assessment is very clear. Russia does not want to invade Europe, and Putin does not want to invade Europe, and Putin and Russia do not have the capabilities to invade and occupy Europe. All true. All true. So that is Gabbard's response to Reuters. And the Financial Times, they put out an article saying that Europe risks a self-fulfilling prophecy over the threat from Russia. A self-fulfilling prophecy. And in this article, Financial Times talks about how Europe constantly going on and on about war with Russia by 2027 or 2030. What it's going to eventually do is lead to war with Russia by 2030. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. I know someone who said the same thing about a week ago. I know someone who said the same exact thing as what the Financial Times said yesterday in their article, that if you keep on talking about war with Russia, eventually you're going to get war with Russia. Even though this is, in my opinion, the talk about conflict with Russia is without a doubt a bluff. The European political class trying to save face. They cannot admit defeat. So they bluff about constant escalation in war with Russia by 2030. It absolutely is about keeping the grift going, keeping the MIC well-funded and well-fed. But the risk that you run is that if you keep on talking about it, even though it's a bluff, even though it's a grift, if you keep on talking about a conflict with Russia, you're going to get a conflict with Russia. So stop talking about it. It's time to stop talking about a conflict with Russia, because the risk is that you're going to get this conflict. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Even though at this moment, it is very much about keeping the grift going and trying to bluff your way out of a political situation, which would be very embarrassing for the EU elite. So that is the article from the Financial Times. It's very much how we got into this mess, isn't it? You keep on talking and talking about escalation with Russia. You keep on talking about about how Russia is nothing more than a gas station masquerading as a country. John McCain's famous line, his famous propaganda narrative back in 2027, where he talked about Russia being nothing more than a gas station masquerading as a country, and if the US just pushes just a little bit on Russia, whether it's some regime changes here, some regime changes there, some sanctions here, some sanctions there. If we just push a little bit, Russia's going to collapse and we're going to get a regime change. Putin's going to be gone. And then we can finish what we started in the 1990s, which is the breakup of the Russian Empire. That was McCain's narrative. That was his gas station masquerading as a country. And it led to the United States building an entire foreign policy based on his statement, it's a gas station masquerading as a country. And the US built an entire foreign policy, architecture, think tanks, papers based on that premise. If we just push a little bit, just a little bit, the whole thing is going to collapse. The whole Russian Empire is going to collapse. That empire, that Russian Empire, that Soviet Empire. The empire, according to John McCain, masquerading as a country, the gas station. So yeah, that's how we got into this mess. You just talk and talk and talk and talk, and eventually you end up in a world of hurt. So that is what Kaja Kallas said. Remember in a speech that she gave, or an answer that she gave during a panel. I believe it was at, I want to say the Munich Security Conference from last year, but I forgot the event. They go to so many events that it's hard to keep track. But Kaja Kallas said that Russia needs to be defeated and it needs to be broken up. The Russian Federation needs to be broken up into small little pieces. That's what she said. It's on record. It's on video. It's on tape. We got her on tape saying that. That's the goal. That's the goal. And Orban, he said in a speech yesterday that it's crazy to believe, and he actually called out Stunning and Brave. He said it's crazy to believe that Stunning and Brave is going to accomplish what the Mustache Man and Napoleon cannot. That's what Orban said in a speech yesterday. And a lot of people in Brussels are very upset with Orban for saying this. But he's just referencing the many statements, not only from Stunning and Brave, but from many EU officials and from many journalists and analysts, going on and on about how what needs to happen is for Russia to suffer a defeat and then for regime change and breaking it up into smaller parts. They've even had a conference in Europe, in the EU. They had a conference talking about breaking up Russia. It was a 1-day or 2-day conference in Brussels dedicated to breaking up Russia. And they even had all the different countries that would form. They had the names of those countries that would be formed from the breakup of Russia. They had the names, they had the flags of those countries, everything. They had it all planned out, and they had a whole conference dedicated to this. It was about 2 years ago that this conference took place. So anyway, that is what Orban said. And on the front lines, Russia is not anywhere close to a defeat. It's actually winning, and winning big, and advancing big. In Guleapole, in the Zaporozhye region, Russia continues to advance, and advance very quickly. And there are some analysts who are even saying that Guleapole could be captured by Russia maybe even before the new year. Definitely during January, at least that's how it looks. That's how quickly Russia is advancing in this sector. So let's talk about some other news, some unpleasant news. Not that what I've been talking about is pleasant, but we got some very, very bad news coming out of South Africa. There was a shooting that took place yesterday, and it was a shooting that took place at a tavern, I believe just outside of Johannesburg, I want to say. And it was two cars that pulled up outside of a tavern, and they started shooting, killing 10 people and injuring more than 20. At least the latest reports say 10 people have died, maybe more, and 20 injured. And the police, they can't figure out what was the motive. No one has been caught. No motive has been identified as to why this happened. But some very bad news out of South Africa. In Lithuania, we had protests, which is odd. Pretty big protests too. Not small protests, but big protests in Lithuania. And they're protesting the government and its poor performance, its corruption, I guess. I'm not even sure what the protests were focused on. But people are not happy with the state of things in Lithuania. The media is never going to report this, because the narrative that they like to put out on the Baltics is that everything is calm and everyone is on board with the escalation and with globalism and the EU and all of those things. But it doesn't look like that. There are parts of the Baltics which want an end to all of this nonsense. So that happened the other day, and I think we could get into a clown world. The Hilton Hotel, which they've been renovating for the past 5 years, 10 years. Not quite sure how long they've been renovating that hotel, but it seems like forever. This is all glass. It's all glass. If you can see. All right, let's do a clown world, and let's wrap this thing up. So we don't have the Kennedy Center. We now have the Trump Kennedy Center. That happened. Okay. The Trump Kennedy Center. I'm not so happy with that. I don't think that name should have been changed, but it has happened. And what else do we have for Clown World? We have Orban putting out a meme on a video meme on the Brussels talks for the seizing of the Russian assets and eventually the 90 billion war loan to Ukraine. And Orban, he put out a video of himself and the other EU countries that resisted Ursula and Costa and Kallis Mertz, all of these people. And he put out a video with the music of Ghostbusters in the background. So it had parts of the meetings that were taking place, segments of all the meetings that were taking place in Brussels over the past couple of days, focused on the 90 billion loan to Ukraine and trying to seize the Russian frozen assets. And in the background was the theme to Ghostbusters. Orban implying that the V3, as he calls it, Hungary, Slovakia, Czech Republic, and other countries that were not so hot on the idea of the Russian frozen assets, Italy, Malta, Cyprus, that they busted the EU's plans to turn Europe into a ghost. I don't know. I don't even know. But anyway, it's a good tune. Ghostbusters, who you gonna call? Ghostbusters, and that was Orban's post. And Donald Tusk, he posted on X, despite excessive caution of some leaders, Europe took the decision to finance Ukraine. The possibility of using immobilized Russian assets is still on. Am I fully satisfied? Of course not. But it is always better to have a piece of something than all of nothing. That's right. Donald Tusk of Poland saying it is always better to have a piece of debt that will never be repaid than to have nothing. It's always better to have a piece of some debt than to have no debt at all. That's Tusk's message to the people of Poland. It's better to be in debt than to have no debt at all. Right? Right, Poland? Right. Right. Okay. That's Donald Tusk, who should really lay off of posting on X because he's awful at posting on X. And finally, we have the meme on the Epstein redacted files, which is being posted on social media, which is the picture of the black square from Malevich from 1915. A very important piece of artwork from the master Malevich, the black square. And the meme is that Malevich, he started redacting the Epstein files way back in 1915. All right, that's the video, everybody, on this Sunday. theduran.locals.com. We're on X, we're on Rumble, we're on Telegram. Go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch, like what I'm wearing in this video update. There is a link in the description box down below. Take care.